Hello, I'm Martin Rostan and I'm with the EtherCAT Technology Group. And I'd like to invite you to join me to flip through that album, which contains a couple of highlights and milestones of the first 20 years of our journey. Let's dive in. Yeah, and this is how it all began. This was the very beginning of the EtherCAT Technology Group. You see here Hans Beckhoff, the founder and owner of Beckhoff Automation, the company that invented EtherCAT in the first place. Yeah, and that's a younger version of myself at the first press conference back in November 2003 when we introduced the EtherCAT Technology Group to the public. And here you see the logos of the founding members. And it was pretty unique because we already had a critical mass of companies together to gain momentum at the very beginning. Those were not only makers of automation devices, but large end users as well, such as Imperial Tobacco, such as Husky, a large machine builder in the injection molding arena, such as Applied Materials, the #1 maker of equipment for the semiconductor industry. And I think this was very important to start with the right momentum for that activity. So that attracted a lot of other vendors and a lot of other users to join the EtherCAT Technology Group soon afterwards. Oh yeah, this picture stands for standards. This was taken at an anniversary for standards in the semiconductor industry. And well, EtherCAT is shown here. E55.20 is the standard for EtherCAT for the semiconductor industry. But EtherCAT's not only a semi-standard, EtherCAT's also a standard in IEC. It's standardized in ISO as well. And the standardization was very important and a lengthy process, by the way. Lots of meetings around the world, lots of standards committees. And IEC in particular is very strict about the way you describe a technology. It has to be very formal and very correct, but it helps a lot because it forces you to write down the technology in a very formal and specified way, which helps everybody to implement afterwards. Yeah, this was the opening of the EtherCAT test center in Kyoto in Japan. And I think the first and only time I was ever wearing white gloves at this opening ceremony. The EtherCAT test centers, this stands for conformance testing in general for EtherCAT. We opened test centers not only in Japan, but also in Germany, China, in North America. And we have a very active community that submits their devices to conformance testing, receiving a conformance certificate afterwards. But even the devices that don't come to the conformance test center need to be tested at home in the lab by the vendor, by the conformance test tool. And this has helped us a lot to ensure interoperability in the field and a smooth user experience for our technology. Yeah, this is the kickoff meeting for the Semiconductor Technical Working Group. And this was in 2011. We started with 96 participants, which was heavy momentum to kick off a new activity. And after that 2-day meeting, we had established 13 sub-working groups that are working on special device profiles for the semiconductor industry. And what was unique about this meeting is that not only the vendors gathered and joined forces, but also the users as well. On the podium here is Dmitry Zilno from Applied Materials, and he was instrumental in pushing EtherCAT into the semiconductor industry. And meanwhile, Dmitry is also a board member of the EtherCAT Technology Group. And if you ask me which industry EtherCAT has won the most, I would certainly say it's the semiconductor industry, where there's hardly any semiconductor tool designed today anymore which doesn't come with EtherCAT. And even the users of the users, so the companies that make chips, are proactively asking for EtherCAT-enabled tools because they understood and found out that the yield is improved by the accuracy, determinism, and by the performance of EtherCAT in general. this was certainly a highlight in 2014, and we had to keep it secret until the very last moment, because the big boys, the then big boys in the automotive industry, like the companies that were dominating the control architecture in that industry, they tried hard to avoid that situation where where Toyota made a public statement at the Hanover Messe in favor of EtherCAT. And I understand that right after that announcement, the board members of several of our competitors jumped on the plane to Japan and tried to reverse that decision because they didn't like it at all that EtherCAT would make an inroad in the automotive industry. It was a slow and difficult path, but now with the electric vehicles and the lots of new companies that have joined the automotive industry, EtherCAT is making an accelerated inroad now, and the outstanding performance of our technology helps in particular in production processes like battery manufacturing, like electric motor manufacturing, which are lots of similar parts or the same parts in large quantities. And there the enormous performance of EtherCAT pays back in particular. Yeah, this was a very unique highlight as well from 2014. EtherCAT became a Chinese national standard, a recommended Chinese national standard. And as it's common in China, they line up all the people well dressed with nice flowers on their suits for that ceremony. And on that event, we discussed with Chinese government agencies that if they push EtherCAT in China, they would enable the Chinese industry and not only open the door for some Western companies to come in and sell their products. Because EtherCAT is truly open. It is, we're not only encouraging and promoting it on the distributed devices, but also on the controller side, which is unique. And that means that Chinese automation vendors can implement both sides, not only the components parts, but also the controllers with EtherCAT. And this has been very successful. Meanwhile, EtherCAT clearly is the #1 network in China. And basically all the Chinese equipment makers, the automation vendors, have adopted EtherCAT as their system bus. Yeah, a roadshow, a seminar, an EtherCAT seminar. This has been a very, very important means of our information dissemination, of our promotion of EtherCAT. Not just holding seminars and putting them on YouTube, which is important, but really going and speaking to the people, seeing them, spending a day with them, explaining our technology. And we've been doing those seminars literally around the world. And so far we've been in more than 50 countries with close to 200 of those seminar series in total. And you can imagine that's a lot of traveling, but it's been worthwhile, it's been fun as well. And it has helped us to meet a lot of interesting people, which then became EtherCAT fans themselves, EtherCAT promoters in their regional markets, and multiplicators, so to speak, for our technology, which they would have never done if they had just seen a video on YouTube. So being there, speaking to the people is very important, and it has helped us a lot to distribute and promote our technology. Yeah, speaking to people, the EtherCAT technology group has grown into a very large community. This was in 2018 when we honored member 5,000 of the EtherCAT technology group. Meanwhile, we have more than 7,500 members from 74 countries. And members are not people, but companies. You cannot join as an individual. It has to be a company, an organization. So that's 7,500 member companies, universities, and associations that have joined the EtherCAT technology group with millions of employees altogether. And the EtherCAT technology group is the world's largest field bus organization for quite some time. But it's not only large, but it's also distributed throughout the world. We are Asia's largest field bus organization, we are Europe's largest field bus organization, and we are America's largest field bus organization. And this very strong and very large community, of course, has helped a lot to promote the technology in the various markets. This is an iconic picture from the very first Plugfest. Now, what is a Plugfest? A Plugfest is like a LAN party for developers. That's where developers come together to test their devices, to test the interoperability of their devices. And we do round-robin testing. The controller makers test with all the sub-device makers round-robin and see if there's interoperability issues. And it's quite challenging in some societies or in some regions of the world, because in some parts of the world, developers are very reluctant to bring, let's say, a half-cooked device and show it to someone else. So it took a while until we got acceptance for that concept, especially in Asia, where some people were thinking of a face loss if they show a device that may not be perfect yet. But that has been shown, it's been a very helpful developer meeting, and people now understand that what happens at the Plugfest stays at the Plugfest, and they much rather find an issue with their device at the Plugfest than at the customer side. And there are only developers allowed to join, no marketing people, and no information what happens there. And that's a very safe and secure place for developers to test their devices, to understand what they can improve, to talk to the expert. We've done now 60 Plugfests around the world, and Plugfests are typically 2 or 3 day meetings with typically 50 to 80 participants each. So those are rather big events with lots of companies, lots of ETG members joining. Yeah. This picture stands for the EtherCAT Technology Group team that you see here. This was at one of our global strategy meetings. But the person standing here with all those flags is Ki, and Ki is from Korea, and Ki is a very keen hiker. And he actually took the EtherCAT flag up to the Himalaya, to a base camp at 5,500 meters above sea level, and placed it there. And this stands for the determinism of the entire team, not only for Ki, he's a very determined EtherCAT promoter, but the entire team is very engaged. Not only the ones that are visible on videos or on the stage, but also the ones that do the base work back in the office, that run the membership administration, that prepare the EtherCAT roadshows, that answer the questions that our members may have about the technology, that organize the trade shows. So all of them are very determined, very engaged, and all are very much in favor and promoting EtherCAT fully heartedly. And that's a great asset that we have and the prerequisite for making this success happen.
So as you can see, this is a completely blank canvas. So we have a question to ask you, like what pictures of EtherCAT do you expect to see in the future?
That is a good question. If we extrapolate what we've seen in the last years, we will someday reach 10,000 member companies from all around the world. This will certainly be something on that picture here. We will see 10,000 member companies one day, but it's not about growing the organization. It's about spreading the word and spreading the technology around the world. And we see some markets, some regional markets, and some industries in which EtherCAT is already the dominating technology. And I expect this to go even further. I expect EtherCAT to be the dominating network, not only now, but in the 20 years to come. With EtherCAT G, we have the next enhancement of the technology that will cover us performance-wise and bandwidth-wise for the next decade or two. So I don't see a slowdown in membership development, in adoption of EtherCAT. We have, in the last year, so many new licensees for chips that have signed up. So we will really see EtherCAT to become commodity technology around the world. And I'm looking forward to orchestrating and accompanying that process. Okay, that is so far the story of 20 years of EtherCAT and EtherCAT Technology Group. Let me sign that album. And if you have any questions regarding our technology, I recommend you check out our website and find out more. Contact us if you have questions. Thank you for accompanying me on that journey through that album and through 20 years of EtherCAT. And I hope I got you interested in our technology.